Alright ladies and gents, this is it. This is possibly the biggest video I will make all year. It's currently the morning of 21st of December 2018 and I've just finished reviewing the LG V30, so that's pretty much out of the question. However, I still have the iPhone 10 and I have the Pixel 2 XL. So what we're going to do today is put these two head to head. I'm going to put my SIMs in both. I have two SIMs. I'm going to use them over a week. I have factory reset them both, and just to prove to you, we've got Hello on this one and we've got the Google logo on this one. I'm going to set all of my apps up exactly the same, log into all the same apps, pretty much have the same use case, and over this week I'm going to be testing which one I want to keep and which one I want to sell. So grab something to eat, sit back and enjoy. This is going to be a long one. And just before we hit that magical intro, I want to say my prediction is the iPhone's going to win, but I think it's going to be a very close call. Hey guys, my name is Ryan Thomas for Failtech, and this is the Pixel 2 XL versus iPhone 10 in 2018 and beyond. I want to start by talking about software first, because that's got to be one of the most talked about debates. Since both phones run the latest and greatest from their respective companies, this has to be a tie for me. I love both Android and iOS, and whilst Android may seem a little bit more functional on the surface, the battery optimizations and other optimizations of iOS more than make up for that for me. I love the aesthetic of Android Pie on the Pixel, but just as much as that of iOS 12.1 on the iPhone. My predictions are that whilst the Pixel 2 XL will get official software updates going to the next 1 to 2 years, the iPhone will go on further for another 2 years. But since most people's phone contracts only last 2 years anyway, this seems to be a kind of a pointless debate. Design and build qualities are incredibly contrasting between these two. The Pixel 2 XL features a painted metal chassis with glass window on the top at the back. I think this Stormtrooper look is stunning, but in terms of feel in the hand, whilst it doesn't necessarily feel cheap, it doesn't scream quality quite like a Samsung Note or LG V series. And I'm sure that's down to the paint that's on top of the metal. You see, this paint can chip and wear away really easily, and marks can be found quite easily too. The design also features larger bezels than most phones, a plus for myself, IP67 water and dust resistance, and a distinctly Pixel design and layout of on-screen nav buttons and all on one side media buttons. And whilst I really like it personally, I don't think it carries that much quality going into 2018 like its more modern counterparts, which funnily enough are made out of, yes, you guessed it, metal and glass. The iPhone 10 does feel a lot more in place in today's smartphone market. Sure, it's not very unique, but it does feel a lot more premium. The mirror-like stainless steel sides can develop micro scratches super easily, as the polished finish is just a little bit too shiny in my opinion, but I seriously like this silver and white version with the contrasting black camera bump on the back. The design of the 10 with its notch and minimal side bezel / chin is more modern looking, but as I said, features a notch which some will hate. Although saying that, the newer 10s have almost exactly the same design, so you're not missing out on much. IP67 is nice to have, but this phone is a year old, so I expect it. The real main difference between these two in terms of their build and design though is the following. I feel like the iPhone 10 needs a case. I feel like the Pixel 2 XL might not need so much of a case. I'm really paranoid whenever I hold my iPhone 10 without a case. I feel like it's going to get scratched or smashed even. Whereas the Pixel 2 XL I'm not so paranoid about, but at the same time it's still a fairly premium feeling phone. I think that's the main difference. The iPhone 10 I'm worried about, Pixel 2 not so much. Extra things to know about the chassis and designs of these phones are the following. Bubbling can appear on the 2 XL if rear glass window isn't replaced correctly. The iPhone 10's rear glass costs about as much as a house to replace. Both lack headphone ports, yet come with dongles in the box, and both use nano SIM without expandable storage slots. Displays are getting so good in smartphones these days, and the displays in these smartphones are more different than they first seem. LG's POLED display in the Pixel 2 XL isn't incredible, its colours, viewing angles and low brightness performance aren't outstanding, and I found that it doesn't get as bright as the iPhones, but the lack of notch is really nice, and I found the bezel to be surprisingly advantageous when viewing multimedia content. This display is larger and of a higher resolution than the AMOLED found in the iPhone 2, and that can make a big difference to a lot of people. I really enjoyed playing games and watching video on this phone because of that large display, but also because of those clear and loud front-firing speakers. They aren't hugely bassy, and they can even be described as tinny at times, but having the clarity and positioning more than makes up for this. I also found that viewing social media content, reading text and typing documents with that larger keyboard on a larger display makes a lot more sense, since the aspect ratio is slightly wider as opposed to taller like it does on the iPhone 10. In 2018, the display quality could be seen as outdated, however with the rounded corners and 18:9-ish form factor, it's kind of fitting. As for the iPhone, well, this sports a much brighter, more accurate and more fitting display. Sure, the long and shallow notch is something that many still hate on to this day, and you're cutting off a portion of the display, but I really like how it fits in the hand. The bezels make the device a smidge larger than an iPhone 6s, but with a larger display than the 6s Plus. This, coupled with the incredible colours and clarity of 3D touch enabled displays, means that the 10 is more than capable of giving you a solid viewing experience. The sharpness and size don't quite match up to the Pixel 2 XL, but I know which one I'd prefer for everyday use. And weirdly enough, I prefer the iPhone speaker setup. Sure, they don't get as loud nor as clear, but having that extra bass is massive to me, and that makes the setup better to me personally. However, the one thing that makes the Pixel 2 XL a winner in the display department from a functionality standpoint is the always-on display. I don't see Apple implementing this on the iPhone anytime soon, but it's a real killer feature for me, and it's one that I miss on any smartphone that I don't have it on. Of course, the iPhone doesn't give you always-on display, but neither does it give you a notification LED, so you actually have to wake the screen if you want to check notifications, where on the Pixel 2 XL, it's right there. You don't even have to pick up the phone. And I wanted to bundle in navigation methods here too. When the Pixel is in gesture mode, it's night and day how much I prefer the sleek and slick gestures on the iPhone. There's no mix between click and swipe, it's just continuous graciousness. But when the Pixel is in plain old-fashioned button mode, I actually sometimes find it a bit more useful. So iPhone still wins for me in navigation, but this is of course very subjective, and I know a lot of people, especially you, Sakib and Kelsey, who really like those gesture methods on Android Pie updates. Performance is an area where the past Pixels would absolutely strive, and at the time of its release, the Pixel 2 XL was an absolute performance king. We've seen the likes of OnePlus surpass Google in terms of speed, fluidity, and overall performance. By no means is the Pixel 2 XL slow, but its lower end specs and aging RAM configuration leave a lot to be desired for around the same price as a used OnePlus 6. But since we're not comparing the 2 XL to the 6 in this video, I'd call this unit perfectly usable. Pi has eliminated a lot of the problems that later versions of Oreo pose for everyday performance, and that is not an issue. As for gaming performance, I found the 2 XL to lag behind in a few heavier 3D titles like Fortnite. However, lower end games were a breeze. If you're a heavy gamer, I'd recommend something else. And I'm going to include the iPhone 10 in that something else category. In terms of gaming performance, very few devices are beating this thing, with its still sophisticated system on a chip and better software optimization. The notch can be a turn off for some, and I get that, but the enhanced performance more than makes up for it anyway. In everyday performance, very similar to the gaming category, very few phones are beating this. Zipping in and out of apps, multitasking, they're all perfectly fine with the A11 Bionic and its 3GB of RAM. In perceivable speed and performance, the iPhone 10 still wins here, even if it has lower RAM configuration. It's just down to the software optimization with the hardware, and perceivable speed, the thing you can tell the difference with, is better on the iPhone 10. I feel like I have to briefly talk about synthetic benchmarks, and this is where the iPhone 10 handily beats the Pixel in both Geekbench and Antutu, where the iPhone is still battling with some laptops. It does show why the perceivable speed increase exists, but only the single-digit percentages of people are ever going to care based on these benchmarks. A lot of this head-to-head is riding on the camera performance of these two, and as a camera nut and overall gearhead, I really want to see which one picks out the best photos. I'm always looking for the best camera in my smartphone, and not only from a point and shoot perspective, but also from like a gear and versatility perspective in the settings and giving you the freedom to actually do what you want and take the image that you like. And these two were arguably the best of their era, so a year or so ahead, do they compete? Do they produce good images? And which one has developed better over the year? Before we head into camera results, I want to show you the interfaces, how you take the photo, how you actually interact with the camera app, and which one I think is better overall. Both share a carousel layout with the basic photo, video, slow-mo and feature modes all there, and whilst I like this approach, I much prefer a vast and more accessible selection of options and modes like LG's and Samsung's camera apps of yesteryear. Now, as it stands, the iPhone's camera app is one of the worst with this kind of selection, of course, because you have to exit the camera app, go to the settings app, find camera, and then change your resolutions, whereas with the Pixel 2 XL, it's as simple as clicking on the rightmost mode and then settings. And another killer feature missing from the iPhone is double tap of the power button to open the camera app. This is something personal, and I don't expect everyone to agree with me on this, but it's just something that I want in my personal phone. Those front cameras are 7 megapixel and 8 megapixel for iPhone and Pixel respectively, with similar apertures and video capabilities. And of course, both shoot single camera portrait selfies, looking pretty close on paper. And onto the results, the first thing I tested is the selfie mode on both, with standard and portrait sub modes. And the first thing I realised is just how terrible the iPhone's colours are. I found the sharpness and brightness to be perfectly acceptable, but if you look closely, I guess it's overexposing or trying to compensate with HDR, but the effect it has on my face makes it look even worse than it already is. And the same can be said for the outdoor shots. I mean, just look at these. Otherwise, I found both to be very sharp and I like the colour reproduction, although the iPhone does tend to go for a bit of a warmer colour set here. When we step into portrait mode, in which both are using the single camera sensor, we see that both offer pretty good images. At launch, the iPhone X was pretty dreadful, but in these images, it's not holding up badly. Edge detection isn't as good as the Pixel 2 XL, where we see more muted colours with more contrast. In this hallway shot again, I prefer the colours of the Pixel 2 XL, where on the iPhone X it just seems a little bit yellowy. Stepping back outside, we see the horrible HDR compensation that makes me look orange like an Oompa Loompa, though I have to say that the edge detection is pretty good. But the 2XL just wins as a nicer image. Indoor selfies in harsh light proves a challenge for the iPhone again, but the Pixel 2 XL doesn't seem too phased. In general, I have to say that I'm preferring the Pixel 2 XL for its colours and edge detection in portrait mode. For selfie video, footage seems noticeably smoother on the Pixel in terms of stabilisation, where the iPhone X seems a little bit shaky, and the same can be said for low light. It looks like the front-facing camera is much better on the Pixel 2 XL for sure. Flipping over to those rear shooters, we see that both main camera setups are very similar, the main differences being the second telephoto lens on the secondary sensor on the iPhone. It's worth noting also that the Pixel 2 XL's pixel sizes are bigger for better low light. In results, we see that low light tends to favour the Pixel 2 XL for detail, which would make sense due to the bigger pixel size, even if the colours were a little bit more accurate on the iPhone. Dynamic range was naturally better on the Pixel 2 XL. In daylight shots and at night time, the iPhone tended to pull ahead. This shot of my wall is clearly underexposed on the iPhone, but has great detail on the Pixel. You might even think that they were taken at different times, but no, not at all. And in this shot of a street lamp, we see that the Pixel 2 XL picks up a weird yellowish colour whilst looking the sharper overall. It lacks the natural colours of the iPhone though. Next up are rear portraits. Now with objects, portrait mode tends to be a little bit better on the iPhone than the Pixel with edge detection, and with regards to colours, the iPhone X again sports a warmer image on indoor objects. However, when we take a trip outside again, we quickly see that the iPhone delivers cooler colours, a trait that I personally prefer. The Pixel 2 XL definitely looks sharper, however. And in this final portrait of my cat Stacy, you can see that the Pixel 2 XL does a way better job with depth mapping and edge detection. In rear-facing video, I weirdly enough found the Pixel 2 XL to fare better with stabilisation and also changing to lighting. For some reason, dynamic range and colouring just looks a bit worse on the iPhone X for some reason, and in the past I actually thought the iPhone would be far better in video, but in testing, maybe not. So it was really strange when it came to the cameras. I actually thought the iPhone would win as an overall versatile phone, but for some reason the colours and everything just doesn't match the Pixel 2 XL, and as an overall package in terms of versatility, settings, point and shoot capabilities, video, photo, portrait modes, front, back cameras, the whole lot, the Pixel 2 XL wins pretty much 98% of the time. On paper, these smartphone batteries are pretty far apart, with the Pixel sporting an almost 30% larger cell. But in reality, the battery lives are more similar than you might expect. Here are two things to consider. One, the Pixel 2 actually gives you a better screen on time, but the iPhone X gives you better standby time. So it all depends on how much you use your phone. I personally experienced a full day battery life from both of these phones without a single issue. The only time that I ever basically broke that rule was when I was installing a ton of apps and testing and doing all the benchmarks that I actually do for these reviews. If I forgot to charge overnight, I knew that the iPhone would have more battery life left in it. However, I was more confident in the Pixel's charging and fast charging with its adapter out of the box. You can fast charge the iPhone, but you do have to go and get an adapter. As with all you smartphones, your mileage may vary, since some might come with wireless or fast chargers in the bundle, and some examples will be more abused than others. I'll call the Pixel the better bet for most people in terms of battery life, since my use case quite specifically doesn't involve gaming and or heavy multimedia consumption. Connectivity is an area in which neither the Pixel nor iPhone lines have boasted greatness, even from the beginning. maybe apart from that time that Google toyed with everyone else for losing the headphone port, and then a year later hypocritically removed it themselves. In terms of USB-C versus Lightning, both are of course reversible, but I personally prefer USB-C, and I pray that one day the ubiquity will be up there with USB-A. Honestly, I can't wait for the day that my microphone, portable hard drive, a phone, laptop, and headphones can all use the same cable, and the Pixel 2 XL helps towards that goal. But no, expandable storage, headphone ports, DeX-like systems, and modularity, they're all missing from these two, and so it has to be a tie from a connectivity perspective from me. Both have fantastic 4G and Wi-Fi capabilities, and both come with the dongle for the headphone port, but just don't expect Note 9 or V30 levels of versatility here. People made a big deal about the iPhone X not having a fingerprint scanner, and I feel like I was pretty blessed with the one on the back of the Pixel 2 XL. No, it's not as fast as Huawei's, OnePlus or Oppo's, but it's still pretty good. And I feel like a fingerprint scanner is going to be better for most people. However, I've grown to really like Face ID. Not that I ever hated it in the first place, but the integration with the likes of LastPass and banking apps is really seamless. I found it to be a very smooth experience. There were times where I did miss the fingerprint scanner, but when at the gym with calluses from gripping the bar, or out in the rain where the water can affect the scanner, Face ID came in clutch and made the difference. So if I had to award either for authentication methods and really put one ahead of the other, I would say Face ID. But that's just me personally, and I feel like for a lot of people out there, fingerprint scanner is going to be the better option. I know this is a bit of a niche, and ever since selling my Philips Hue that was basically sat dormant in a drawer for the past 2 months, this has become less of an issue for me, but Google Assistant is that much better than Siri. And of course it's software and AI and can evolve over time with software updates, but Siri has just been fairly useless compared to Google Assistant for me. I'm not going to bias myself or change my decision based on the Assistant, but maybe you will. And even though I think Google Assistant is better, you've got that squeeze to activate, you've got everything there, I really don't care that much, but I know a lot of you do, so I did want to bring it up. There's just so much you can do with Google Assistant, and of course there's new things coming in all the time, like that call screening feature that we're getting soon. So many things, whereas Siri just seems like a bit of a joke, almost like a Bixby competitor. And now it's finally time to pick which of the two smartphones I'm going to keep for the next little bit. If I had to be completely honest, this was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. As I mentioned at the beginning, I thought maybe the iPhone would creep out a little bit, and the Pixel 2 XL has been absolutely fantastic for me. I love the screen, even though people tend to hate on it. The camera is absolutely stunning, even going into 2019, I think. Performance is good. It does lag a little bit in games, but I don't really play many games. I don't really care about the lack of a headphone port. I use Bluetooth headphones, and I absolutely love that black and white design. I think it's incredibly iconic, incredibly different, and shies away from the glass sandwich design that we have normally. But, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, the iPhone X has to win for me. Sure, its camera's not quite as good, and okay, it hasn't got Android, which is known to be a little bit better for us techies. However, we've got better performance, better software updates going into the future, a nicer design in my opinion, ergonomics that actually fit my hand because, well, my hands are fairly small. And honestly, it's a design that I really, really like. Okay, I actually kind of prefer the Pixel 2 XL's design, but the black and white of this one, and you know, I don't mind the notch and stuff, it all looks really good to me. So yeah, I'm going with the iPhone X for the next little bit. And that's not to say that I won't go for another phone in, say, another couple of months. Maybe I'll switch to Mate 20 or something like that. But out of these two, I have to go with the iPhone X. Look, I absolutely love both phones, and without annoying too many people, I think both are great options. And I actually think the Pixel 2 XL is a far better value going into 2019. However, for the person who wants longevity, for the person who wants raw horsepower, and who wants simplicity, the iPhone X just has to win. And that's about it from me, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Please do like, dislike, comment, and subscribe if you're new around here to never miss a video like this one. Also, check out social media and Discord links will all be in the video description below. We can discuss stuff like the iPhone versus the Pixel. And I also want to thank my patrons. You guys are fantastic. You're amazing. Thank you so much for your continued support. And if you feel like becoming a patron, then links will be in the description as well. Anyway, guys, my name's been Ryan Thomas for Failtech, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.